faces. So this is a class on Proverbs. So let's turn to the book of James. Did that trick you? All right, let's go to James chapter 3. Verse 1. My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same as a perfect man. Are you not there yet? Sorry. And a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. I want to focus on, my brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. So, whenever you teach a class, it's a serious thing. Masters as teachers. So I like to remind myself that this is a serious business. I like to make jokes. I like to, and I don't think that's, I don't think that's a problem. But I do take this seriously. And I hope that comes through even with any of the jokes. Since any teacher will receive greater condemnation, God judges teachers. So anyway, I wanted to say that. Now you can flip over to James chapter 1. I have prayed for years about wisdom. Ever since I read it in James, that you could ask God for wisdom. Verse 5, if any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God, that giveth to all men liberally and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. But let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven with the wind and tossed. So I read that a long time ago, in the NIV of all things. But the basic gist is the same. So I've regularly prayed for wisdom, and I believe that is that and godly parents. Because if you have godly parents, the children are blessed. I believe that's in Proverbs as well. I believe that's one of the reasons that I personally have not gone through major, horrible life events related to sin. I've made plenty of mistakes. I still have very many flaws, and I struggle with sin on a daily basis, just like all of you. But I didn't make any major mistakes. I went to a Christian college. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke, although, I did try some of that stuff. I'm not going to lie. I managed to date Christian women. Through God's protection, because I prayed to him through my dating, God broke up relationships that I thought were perfect and put me in a relationship that seemed to have all sorts of baggage and whatnot, and that's been where I've been the happiest, and God knew what he was doing. So I really think that wisdom is just such a huge thing for all of us. The younger you are, it's probably more important, just because you probably have learned less. You have less wisdom just through less experience. But, godly wisdom translates into, there's a form of worldly wisdom, but I want godly wisdom. I don't want to apply worldly wisdom to my job or anything else, or my relationships. I just want godly wisdom. I could go to my boss and demand more money and probably get more money, but I wouldn't be any happier. I trust God, and God has changed things at my job, so I've actually gotten more money recently, and I'll probably get more coming up, because now I have a boss who recognizes me sees what I do, appreciates it, and he thinks I'm great. Whereas before I had bosses who didn't see anything of what I did. And I've never promoted myself. I've just trusted God to take care of me. And whenever I've gotten job opportunities, I pray about them. And as much as I hate to do anything, if I get a job opportunity that looks good and looks compatible, I will entertain it. I will do an interview, and then I will trust in God. I'll ask a couple people in the church to pray, maybe. I'll see what happens. I'm not gonna stress about it. I'm gonna apply godly wisdom to these circumstances. So, I want to teach on wisdom, but we like to teach expositionally. That's right, isn't it? Okay. We like to take a book and go through it. And there's nothing wrong with doing topical occasionally. I think expositionally is the best because then it's just, you just go through. Then you don't say, oh, we're having financial problems in the church, let's talk about tithing. You know, that doesn't work. I've seen it done. Or whatever, you know. We've got 18-year-olds who are graduating. Let's talk about not drinking and partying. Now, if you choose to, that's okay. Maybe you've got something teed up, Pastor, I don't know. But it works really well if you just do expositionally because it's just, this is what God has. In small churches, it seems to really be an issue whenever you do pick a topic, because then it's like, that person's preaching to me, and that pastor may be preaching to you. I don't know. I don't think ours is. I don't believe it works that way here. I think we're very blessed. So then I was like, whoa, Proverbs. I read it every day. Proverbs has a ton to say about wisdom, right? Some of the best advice given to me that I didn't take until recently was, by recently I mean the past 2, 3, 4 years, was to read a book of Proverbs every day. Okay, and then pick a verse, and then pick a verse out of there and say, okay, this is the verse that speaks to me today, and meditate on it. I don't necessarily do that great, meditating on it throughout the day, but it helps a lot. Focus your reading, and then saying, this verse speaks to me, you know, and it works really well. I wasn't taught that when I was younger. I talked to my dad, I don't know, not horribly long ago. I found out he does that. Like, I wonder when he started. I don't know, maybe he's done it his whole life and he never told me. But it's really good because you can get so much out of Proverbs in such a short period of time. It's so easy. You know, one of the complaints about the King James is, you know, or even the Bible in general for some people is it can be tough to understand. Well, Proverbs is pretty easy. There's a lot of wisdom here. You don't have to read a bunch to get something out of it. I'm trying to encourage my kids to do it, but I would encourage you to do it if you are not, which this many people here, I'm sure there's somebody who's probably not doing it. So start. And the other advice is, so what, today is it the 22nd? Thank you. So you read Proverbs 22. Let's say the next day you're too busy, you wake up late, you got to rush your job so you don't get your reading done. 24th comes along, just read Proverbs 24. That's some of the best advice, I think. I mean, you're welcome to, right? More is better. But if you just focus on reading for that day, I think you're going to be more successful. Whenever you try to catch up, it seems to me like then you have a bad week, you're sick, you're just backslidden, you get a week behind. Well, now you got this big chunk you got to read. So anyway, that's the way I am. I'm sure you're better than that. So feel free to do these differently. These are just my comments. Take them for what you will. And then you read through Proverbs 31. If you got 31 days, if it's February, you read to 28 or 29. You start over. It works really well. I wish I had been doing it my whole life. So Proverbs doesn't seem to be like you need to talk about it a lot, but there's always study that you can pull more stuff out of it. God is just an expert of having just this a wealth of information. Something simple can have just so many different applications, and there can be types of things and whatnot. So there is value to studying Proverbs for sure. So what is a proverb? Proverb translates to parable. Compares one thing to another. Basically, it's just a short saying that should capture a truth. In the Bible, it does capture a truth, but there's other ancient Chinese proverbs or whatever, which many of those are not accurate. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. I mean, if you're on if you're sailing around the ocean, you eat an apple, it might keep scurvy away or something. Not that apples are bad, but if you're diabetic, that might not be a good thing. Pastor and I were talking about some last week. Cleanliness is next to godliness. I'm not quite sure how. I mean, if you're godly, you should be a good steward, and keep your house clean and stuff. But that's, I can be godly and still not take a shower as much as I should. In this day of COVID, that's definitely true, since you don't have to go into the office as much, or I don't.
Here's the deal. Godly wisdom is the most important part, because if you don't have that, your worldly wisdom
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you take the godly wisdom, you apply it to your world, and that turns into your worldly wisdom. It's godly wisdom. Yeah, any of the things that I do, I listen to some podcasts. One of them's Jocko Willink, who's an ex-Navy SEAL. Another's Jordan Peterson, who's a psychologist. Don't shoot me. But, but I take everything they say, which is, there's a lot of good stuff in there. I filter them through the Bible, okay? I would definitely not say, this is what you should follow. That's not what I do. I take different sources. I like to say I eat the bones and spit out the meat, but I'm just saying that to be honoring. Really, I'm eating the meat and spitting out the bones. You do that with commentaries, you do that with everything you do. I'm looking at, for this study, I'm a simple man, so when I study stuff, I pick commentaries that I trust. David Cloud, J. Vernon McGee, and is it Henry or Harry? I always get that back. Harry Ironsides. Okay, that's it. That covers it for me. I trust those guys. I can compare the three of them. If they disagree on something, I'm like, okay, good men can disagree. So that's what I do for my study. So now we can actually turn to Proverbs if you would like. With all that being said. So Proverbs is in the poetical book of the section of the Bible. When you're trying to memorize the Bible, there's different sections. There's historical books, poetical books, prophetical books. When you've got all these, especially with all the ones you don't reference a lot, sometimes it's good to try to figure out what category it fits in. Proverbs is a collection of sayings. Is it written by King Solomon? That you can split hairs on what written means, but it's attributed to King Solomon. He collected some of them. 1 through 29 is, chapters 1 through 29 is King Solomon's. It's attributed. And, whether or not he came up with them or his uncle told him when he was a child or whatnot, 1 through 29, it's got a different breakdown. Let's see. 30 is Oracle of Agar, who nobody knows who that is. 31's probably King Solomon again, going by a nickname. But really, okay, so King Solomon. So who is King Solomon, right? We know he's the son of David. What's he known for? Wisdom. Okay. Yeah, if you had to describe King Solomon in one word, it'd probably be wisdom. He's also known for having a lot of wives and porcupines, or concubines. My wife always calls them porcupines. Which, you got that many, you're probably gonna get stung by something. 700, yeah. Anyway, so described by wisdom, I mean, there's the story, great story. You hear it out, like certain things permeate our culture, like David and Goliath. The other thing is the argument between the two women over whose child was whose, and how King Solomon, wisely did that. Tried doing that at home with something like cake, and they're like, whose cake is this? And then you say, well, then we'll cut it in half. It's like, wait, that doesn't work. It doesn't work quite the same way. But King Solomon was a great man. And if you, let's see, actually, now that I had you go to Proverbs, I probably should have you turn to Kings. So 1 Kings chapter 3 is where I want to go. Hold your place in Proverbs. We will come back to that. At some point, we'll actually talk about Proverbs. Probably be next week. So 1 Kings chapter 3. And Solomon made affinity with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her into the city of David until he had made an end of building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall of Jerusalem round about. Only the people sacrificed in the high places, because there was no house built unto the name of the Lord until those days. And Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statutes of David his father. Only he sacrificed burnt incense in the high places, or in high places. Verse 4. And the king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for there was a great high place, 1,000 burnt offerings, and Solomon did offer unto that altar. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, ask what I shall give thee. And Solomon said, Thou hast shewed unto thy father, or unto thy servant David, my father, great mercy, according as he walked before thee in truth and in righteousness and in uprightness of heart with thee, and thou hast kept for him this great kindness. Thou hast given him a son to sit on his throne, as it is this day. And now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. And thy servant is in the midst of thy people which thou hast chosen, a great people that cannot be numbered nor counted for multitude. Give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad, for who is able to judge this thy so great a people? And the speech pleased the Lord, that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said unto him, Because thou hast asked this thing, and hast not asked for thyself long life, neither hast asked for riches for thyself, nor hast asked the life of thine enemies, but hast asked for thyself understanding to discernment, behold, I have done according to thy words. Lo, I have given thee a wise and understanding heart, so that there was none like thee before thee, neither after thee shall any arise like unto thee. And I have also given thee that which thou hast not asked, both riches and honor, so that there shall be not any among the kings like unto thee all thy days. And if thou wilt walk in my ways to keep my statutes and my commandments as thy father did walk, then I will lengthen thy days. And Solomon awoke, and behold, it was a dream. I'll just stop right there. So it was a dream, but it's not like our dreams, right? God used dreams back then to talk to people because, we didn't have the Bible. They didn't have the Bible, although, there were parts of the Bible. There was the entire Bible. So God does not use dreams anymore. But let's look at a couple things that Solomon says here. Verse 7, and now, O Lord my God, thou hast made thy servant king instead of David my father, and I am but a little child. I know not how to go out or come in. I think that's really interesting. I mean, talking about humble. That guy was like, I don't know what I'm doing. You ever feel like that? Because I do. Like, in my job, my job is really dynamic, and I'm having to do stuff that is very, and I'm praying up a storm because I don't know how I'm going to figure this stuff out. But I know God was good, and I know I'm a pretty smart guy, and which is a blessing from God anyway, and I'll get through it, and hopefully it won't be too tough with his help, right? Doesn't mean it's not going to be difficult. But if you acknowledge that you need God's help, I mean, that is pretty much the first step. When I was young, asking God for help was like the last step. I didn't think about it. I'm just like, well, this is what I got to do. I would worry if it was something, worried about many, many stupid things. I used to drive a swather, and I was really worried about hitting a fence post. I don't know. I mean, my dad had drove a swather, and maybe he mentioned that or something, but I was worried about that. I'm like, you're in control. You're steering the thing. Don't run into the fence post. Silly stuff. If I just prayed to God instead of worrying about hitting a fence post, my life would have been a lot less stressful. But I would usually get broken down or hit a wall before I would ask God for help. Now I'm like, God, help me figure out what to eat here, which J. Vernon McGee is silly, but I don't think it's possible to pray too much for something. If God may not answer me, but if I wait long enough, he'll answer me. Maybe he's saying, don't eat anything. You need to lose weight. I'm sure that's probably accurate. But I really think if the humility, and obviously that's a struggle, especially I think for guys. If you recognize that you don't have all the answers, I mean, if you can't admit it to your friends and colleagues, that's fine. You don't want to be like, oh, I don't know how to do anything. You got to show some confidence, especially to the world, right? God will get you through it. You got a hard task, say, okay. And then you take it to God and say, God, I am but a little child. Help me out here. So he went to God, and said, I don't know what to do. And they said, give therefore thy servant an understanding heart to judge thy people, that I may discern between good and bad. For who is able to judge this so great a people? He recognized the responsibility he had. I mean, I really feel for Elijah and Tiana. They got a little baby now. That's a responsibility. I had and still have 6 responsibilities, and it's challenging. It's not something your children can be a blessing. They're definitely a lot of work, but it's something where it's like I've never regretted having children. They weren't accidents for us. Having twins was not planned, but yeah, that's still not an accident. That's God's divine intervention. But recognize your responsibilities and recognize that God, He'll help you with that stuff. God likes that, right? He likes to hear from us. You learn that in Proverbs. Big surprise there. He likes to hear from us. He doesn't want us to go make a mess and then come running to Him. Talk to Him first. I mean, as a parent, you want your children to, you don't want to have to spoon feed them, but you do, if they come and they ask you advice on something, that's fine. That's a good thing, especially if it's something serious, like a job or, a girl or a boy, something like that. If you're able to give some of your wisdom, it's something that you like to do. So God, what was His response? I mean, God really liked this, so He gave David a wise and understanding heart, and He gave him, riches and honor, and which is pretty amazing. But it just says how much God appreciated having somebody come to Him with humility and having, enough wisdom already to know that he needed help. So, Solomon was, his name means peace. He built the temple. He's known for ruling with wisdom, 40 years. He did backslide, though, which is interesting, right? Such a wise man, right? But he backslid. So how did he backslide? Anybody else? Anybody else? There you go. Yes. Disobeyed God. Got a lot of wives and porcupines. They took, 1 Kings 11:3. And he had 700 wives, princesses, and 300 concubines, and his wives turned away his heart. Funny how that works. So, in order to gain wisdom, you can gain it a couple different ways. You can either gain it the hard way, through the school of hard knocks. Okay. Tuition is free, by the way, to that school. Free, as in you'll pay, just not with cash up front. And there's also learning through the wisdom of others. Okay, I learned a lot. Like, I trusted my father. He was a godly man, still is a godly man. If he gives me advice, I will listen to it. I recently asked him something. I said, I know that this is my decision, but I respect your opinion. I'd like you to give it. And I told my wife that we would actually do what his recommendation was. It's a financial thing. Let's see. So, through hard experience or through God and His teaching. So that can be, from your father, from your a godly friend, your pastor, the Bible, whatnot. You gain knowledge from that stuff. Reading Proverbs is an excellent way. I try to memorize some of the verses in here that I struggle with, for things that I struggle with. And this is, I personally, and and I think it's possible for good men to disagree on this, but I think Proverbs, I was trying to figure out, when was Proverbs written? And I don't know, I'm sure David Cloud has an opinion. Wasn't able to find it. But, was it at the beginning, the middle, the end, because David backslid later in life. Okay, so did David write the Proverbs before he backslid? Well, that seems odd to me. Sorry, I keep saying David, I apologize. Solomon, yes, I don't know why I keep saying David. Did Solomon do this before? My personal belief is that he probably wrote Proverbs after he'd gone through all this stuff. It seems logical because when, as you get older and you realize, wow, I've learned a lot of things, some the hard way, some, just by godly teaching, and I see dangers. You become more observant, hopefully, as you get older, and you can see dangers down the road coming. So, and the other reason is because there's a lot in Proverbs about women and the dangers of women. Like that. Anyway, the dangers of women, right? It's not godly women, but it's, the strange woman, right? The ungodly woman, the unsaved woman, and maybe she's not even trying to be dangerous. But when you have somebody that does not have the same goals in life as you and the same priorities in life as you, that's one of the reasons why we don't want our children to date unsaved people. That's why Titus has a problem. He's dating an unsaved girl. Now, is that my choice? No, it is not. I will tell you this now. This is a result of some previous disobedience that is from, I'm not trying to call out Titus. Titus is smart enough to know he's screwed up. He wants to do what God wants him to do. And he knows the danger he's facing. And he's trying to get her saved. So, we're praying like crazy for this girl to get saved. And she's open to it, but we don't want her to fake it, right? We don't want to pressure her to get saved and have them end up getting married and have her not be saved. So that's bad. So yeah, the strange woman, the ungodly woman, there's so many things. And as you look in this wicked world, it's just getting more and more and more insane. The transgenderism, calling biologically male people she. I'm seeing it more and more in my company. We now have the option to put our pronouns on our messaging system. And I will not do that. And I've actually told somebody at work, I said, if they require that, I will quit. That's just a line I'm drawing for myself. It's just for me. Feel free to put your pronouns if you so choose, but I'm not doing it. That's actually a good way to tell how somebody is politically in this day and age. If they're putting their pronouns up there, that is somebody who is very left-wing. So yeah, it's not that women are bad or anything else, but men have to really be careful. Like, men might be physically strong, but and I'm not even just talking like, sexually the dangers of women. When I dated a girl and she was saved, but that's the closest thing to being like on drugs that I've ever felt. When I was not with her, I wanted to be with her. And at the expense of my friends. I had a friend who needed help building a garage. And I'm like, yeah, sorry, I'm going to her house, man. And I was ashamed of that. And actually the girl and I broke up. Yes, she dumped me. And then later on, she came back to me and wanted to get back together. And after a couple days of fasting, we got back together. And then I was put in the same scenario. And this time I didn't make that mistake, but I gotta tell you, being over at my friend Andy's house, helping him build a garage instead of being with her, was really difficult. And after a while, he said, okay, we got this part done, you can go. So I am super sympathetic to my son Titus because I know how he feels. You look at somebody who's on drugs, it pulls them. It's drawing them. They can't help it, right? So that's why we want our children to stay away from unsaved people, unsaved girls, unsaved boys in the first place. Because once those drugs kick in, it's really tough. But I have faith in God. Okay? I trust God that he will take care of this situation with Titus. He took care of me when I was praying about my relationships. My wife made it through some stuff, not unscathed, but she made it through. God is faithful. And if you're praying to God and you're asking for help, he'll get you through it. That doesn't mean Titus won't make a wrong decision at some point. But I know from talking to him, he's trying to do what's right. Wisdom is something that you don't just get and you have forever, right? Our brains are, we're forgetful. We just forget stuff. Women forget the pain of childbirth. If they didn't, they don't completely forget it, okay, but you can't tell me you haven't forgotten at least something if you want another kid. There's got to be some level of forgetting of that pain. If God put that on us guys, the way we're currently wired, there would not be a population. We would no. So anyway, we forget stuff. We forget good stuff. We forget bad stuff. Wisdom you need to exercise. That's why we keep going over stuff. That's why Kelly repeats stuff. If you repeat stuff enough, it's gonna sink in better. I had a psychology teacher at Bob Jones. We all had to take basic psychology for whatever reason, but it was a Christian teaching it. So, and in the psychology class, he was talking about what happens in the brain, and he said, and what happens, when the receptors make connection, and it was like everybody would go biff. That was just his thing. I still remember the biff. He did biff. So yes, you can remember certain things, but there's so much here. And Proverbs is a reminder each and every day, and I keep needing the reminder on various things. So you need to exercise your wisdom, just like faith. Faith, you don't just get faith and you're just good. You have to constantly say, you go through trials and you say, you get faith through reading the Bible and seeing how God's going to take care of you. And then you live the faith. My faith is stronger because I went through the 2008 recession, and we had 60% of my department laid off. And there was legitimately no reason to not lay me off. At one point, I almost went in and told my boss to lay me off because I couldn't stand waiting anymore. Of course, I had a family, so, I don't know how I made it through other than God just protected me. So it's a battle. Each and every day, it's a battle. And that's why we want to start out our day with Bible reading and prayer. And I'm not going to say I'm awesome at doing that. I really, 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 really struggle with mornings. Like, really, really, really struggle. You think you struggle? I'll put your struggle up against my struggle. I'll bet y'all win. Okay? Now, I won't go into detail, but I struggle. It's not just waking up, but it's brutal. Uh, so I struggle a lot with mornings, but I find it to be best, right? If I can wake up, do my Bible reading, prayer, Bible reading, pray for your Bible reading, then do it, and then do a prayer for everybody else. Remember to be thankful in your prayers. I realized the other day I wasn't being thankful enough. I was just trying to focus on praying for everybody. So be thankful. So watchfulness and prayer is the only safety for both young and old. I mean, you've got to battle. You know, you got to read your Bible. You got to watch for dangers. You got to pray about them. Trust God, and He will get you through it. And I really believe, that Proverbs is just one of the most important things in a daily Bible reading in Proverbs. I mean, I don't need the daily bread. I mean, when I was a kid, the daily bread was the thing. It was your devotional. I mean, I think Proverbs is the best devotional there is. So, anyway, that's a good enough introduction. Next week we will actually use Proverbs. Okay. So, all right, you're dismissed. Thank you for your attention. Man, talk about good timing. Here they come.